Did you know that most successful YouTubers could lose everything because of a single lawsuit? And when I say everything, all of the money they've made from doing YouTube, as well as their brand, as their identity, as all of those things. So I'm going to show you in this video how content creators can structure their businesses to protect the content as well as their income and their personal assets. And a quick answer, no, it's just not about having an LLC. There's specific things you need to do to make sure that LLC delivers. I'm Jonathan Feniak. I'm an attorney and I focus on asset protection and helping creators build business structures that are going to deliver on the promise of limited liability protection. These are the things I think you need to know when you're setting up your LLC as a content creator. So let's talk about what the risks are first. In order to make sure that your structure, your limited liability structure is going to work, we need to know what the risks are. And common risks associated with being a content creator are copyright issues, right? Are you using someone else's intellectual property without authorization? Partnership disputes, is there more than one person involved? Some creators are a single individual, sometimes it's a team or it's a group. Brand deal complications. If you have a deal, if you're lucky enough to have someone pay you to talk about their product, what can come of that? What can go wrong? And then personal liability exposure. Who is taking the risk, or what is taking the risk? Is it you as an individual, or is it preferably your company that's taking all the risks? So let's dive into this a little bit more and start talking about a basic protection setup. An LLC is a limited liability company, not limited liability corporation. Corporations are something different, a limited liability company. I recommend in almost all cases starting with a limited liability company. Number one, they're easy to administer and manage. They're also very easy to set up. You form a limited liability company by filing articles of organization with a specific state that you want your LLC formed in. You have to do some things when it comes to the LLC. You need to name a registered agent. You may need to provide specific information to the Secretary of State. Professionals can help you make sure you do it the right way. But that's the basic formation, is getting that LLC, articles of organization, filed with the Secretary of State and naming a registered agent. So you have to choose a registered agent for your business. And a lot of people will make themselves the registered agent. They will put that into the public record. They will put it on the Secretary of State site. And in doing that, you're putting your name and you're putting your address, your home address, into that record. Highly recommend you hire a professional registered agent, because you can be a target once you're putting yourself out there on YouTube and you're talking about things, whether it's controversial or not. Everything tends to be a controversy these days. Someone could dox you, they could swat you, they will have information about where you live, and you got to stay safe. Another thing to think about is what state to form that LLC in. I said you're going to file articles of organization, but where are you going to file them? Well, many people think that they need to form the company in the state in which they're a resident. Not true. States have different rules about what constitutes doing business in the state, but someone who's generating content, putting it on YouTube from their bedroom or for wherever they may be traveling, whatever else, you're not in the legal sense doing business in that particular state. So you get to select which state you want to be in. We recommend that you form in a state that's very business friendly and asset protection friendly, and that's going to be Wyoming in most cases. We start thinking about, this basic element, the things that you're trying to do. We start then talking about, well, do you need more? I think people get a little bit ahead of themselves. And so I want to make sure you understand these are not for people just starting out. These are things to consider. Keep in the back of your mind as your business is growing. Can you do things to segregate your risks, segregate your assets into smaller buckets? Don't try to do it too early, though, because it takes an administrative burden. It is an administrative burden and cost associated with doing these things. But one of the things that some creators will do is they'll create an intellectual property owning entity. The intellectual property of the creator is held in that intellectual property entity, and then it is borrowed by the creator themselves. So you can have potentially two entities, one that owns the IP and one that's actually doing the content creation. Another one would be using multiple entities. So if you have one entity that is doing content creation and has brand deals, okay, that may be one business entity. Then you've got another business entity that maybe is doing consulting. You may have another business entity that's doing a product line, right? So those three different businesses I just described have totally different risks associated with them. Products liability risk. You've got contractual risk on brand deals. You've got error and omission risk if you're doing consulting work. So those kinds of things, does it make sense to have multiple entities to do it? Maybe, but you have to think about if they are truly being run as separate businesses. If they're really just all being done, you've only got 2 employees and they work across all 3 of those activities, then you're probably not gonna get much protection from having multiple entities. And here's why. If you're commingling the assets of the companies, moving them back and forth, and there's no real structure to it, then at that point, a court is likely to mash them all together and say, really, they were just alter egos of each other. So there's mistakes that people make when it comes to setting up and running their LLC. So you gotta respect the entity. You can't mix personal and business finances. If you're paying the kids' school tuition directly out of the business bank account, or something that has nothing to do with your business, you're going out and you're buying a car and you don't drive anywhere in your YouTube videos, right? It's not a valid business expense. You now are using those business assets as if they are your own. Don't do it. You want to make sure the business bank account, the business finances, is beautifully self-contained. If you needed to present that to the IRS and say, here's all the income, here's all of the expenses I had, it's a completely clean, pristine record, you significantly reduce your risk on an audit of having an adverse finding, but it also, from the asset protection perspective, is going to be great for you because the entity itself, you've respected it and it will be respected by the courts. Another one is poor documentation. You start out the basics, get an operating agreement, okay? Have an operating agreement for your company. You need to make sure that it addresses the right things, that you're working with a partner, they provide it, and it's going to really address your needs. But then it's not just the operating agreement. Are you doing meeting minutes, right? I like to say money in, money out, important decisions. There should be a memorialized record, a written record of what happened. So at some later date, there isn't a question about, was this a loan that you made to the company, or was this a capital contribution? Was this a distribution, or are you commingling funds? Is this a contract that you entered into that's covered by something called the business judgment rule, or did you just make a decision based on your gut feeling? So making sure that you take those steps, as well as a final one on the common mistakes is going to be choosing the wrong state, okay? We want you to have great asset protection. We want to avoid veil piercing, and all states' laws are not created equal. Some states and court decisions make it very easy to pierce the veil and hold the owner of the LLC responsible for liabilities, especially with a single member LLC, but certain states have enhanced protections, and that enhanced protection, that state is definitely Wyoming. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the limitations of an LLC. There's things it will protect you from, but then there's other things it may not, especially if you make some key mistakes. Stay tuned for that next video.